Good morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where we are getting very close to Friday. What happens on Friday? Well, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to watch Captain America Civil War, and you can watch with me. We'll start the movies at the same time, and it'll be like, again, we're watching the films together, and you'll get my commentary on Captain America Civil War live. The digital version will go on sale at midnight, so you'll have all day to purchase it, so you're ready to go at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then if you want to wait for the physical copy of the movie to come out, both my live reaction and the Q&A that will follow will go up on YouTube afterwards. So you can watch the movie with me whenever is convenient for you. But if you want to watch with the big group, it's going to take place this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now let's get to today's episode, where we actually have a lot to discuss on the Oscars. It's starting to take shape already. Now, much of the discussion to begin with for the Oscars was about the birth of a nation. But after the Nate Parker scandal, suddenly the Oscar race is wide open. And La La Land just moved in to a front position because it premiered at the Venice Film Festival, where all the critics' hearts just melted watching it. In fact, there is said to be the opening musical sequence takes place during an LA traffic jam, which I have to say sounds pretty clever. And word is the audience burst into applause once it was over because they were just so blown away. So critics are really going to push this movie, and I think this is the kind of this is the kind of launch that you want for an Oscar film. It's the launch that The Birth of a Nation had coming out of Sundance, which had people applaud it before it even played, before people even saw a single frame of the movie. But of course, that movie got significantly derailed. We'll see if it can get back on track, but now La La Land seems to be a frontrunner. You might be thinking, another Oscars so white situation? But we're going to talk about Oscar hosts in just a moment, and they have a number of Black talent that they're actually considering for that. But with La La Land, this movie is I'm sure you've seen both the teaser trailer and the full trailer, but it's an old-fashioned musical. It's an homage to the old-fashioned musicals that takes place in modern Hollywood. And it tells the story of a struggling actress played by Emma Stone and a struggling musician played by Ryan Gosling who fall in love in the city. And it's directed by Damien Chazelle as his follow-up to Whiplash, which was a big Oscar winner. Not just for J.K. Simmons, but it won in a number of other categories as well and was up for stuff like Best Picture. And when I remember it so well, and I've brought this up before, but when everybody went up to get their Oscar, particularly the behind-the-camera people, they all thanked Damien Chazelle. They were extremely complimentary. So it seems like he's a pretty cool dude, which will also help him on the awards campaign trail. So Damien Chazelle, talent to watch. Curious, will a superhero movie pick him up? What will he do going forward now that he has two seemingly not only critical hits, but potentially awards hits as well? Whiplash wasn't a huge box office contender, and I don't know what La La Land is going to be like, because Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, everyone likes to say, they work together all the time, but nobody ever finishes that sentence by saying, and most of the time, nobody cares. So I don't know how the movie's going to fare at the box office. It would have to have huge awards momentum and nominations, I think, to really push it. But then movies like The Artist, even with all that buzz, still nobody cared. But that was, a silent black and white movie. So it's a little bit of a harder pitch. But, this movie has a soundtrack, an original soundtrack to push with its stars singing, and it's done very well on Twitter. It's trended quite a bit. So it's got that going for it. So I don't know how the movie's going to do at the box office, though, and I don't know how it's going to help Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's careers. I'm sure both of them, Emma Stone's been nominated before for Birdman, for instance. I'm sure both of them would love to get nominations and go to the awards ceremonies. But that's not totally new for them. What they really need to do, both of them are very highly regarded as actors. They need to get those box office numbers up. Emma Stone turned down Ghostbusters, although that turned out to be a smart idea. And maybe Ryan Gosling will do well with because Nice Guys is doing very well on streaming, but it was a box office flop. It's a good movie. I think it's a better streaming movie, though, to be perfectly honest with you. And he's also in Blade Runner 2, but I think Jared Leto is going to end up stealing the show there. So anyway, that's La La Land, which is now a strong frontrunner for Oscars 2017. So if you're into following Oscar season, make sure you see that when it comes out. Now, as for the host of the Oscars, both the host and the producers of the telecast are expected to be chosen within the next 2 weeks, because word is they want to give them as much time as possible to prepare. Because the Oscar show, the ratings have gone down. Chris Rock's last telecast, not particularly well received. Ellen DeGeneres did a good job, but before that, Seth MacFarlane didn't really work out. Neil Patrick Harris didn't quite work out. They have some damage control to do. So they're going to try and get some good producers on there. But also, of course, the host is a key decision. And the Hollywood Reporter had an article this morning talking about who are the front runners. Now, my choice is Louis C.K. And indeed, it seems he is a front runner because everybody was impressed with when he presented the Oscar for Best Documentary last year. He had some really good gags. But the concern, the Hollywood Reporter pointed out, is that his fan base might be too small. Ellen, for instance, has a huge fan base, a huge number of Twitter followers. She's Dory, for Pete's sakes. So when she hosts, she brings in more eyeballs. And, don't kid yourself, while they're very happy to be handing out Oscars, the whole point of the telecast is to bring in ratings. So Louis C.K., they might be like, will anyone watch? That's one reason they said that they're, while Key and Peele are a strong choice, I think Key and Peele would be a fantastic choice as well. They're also concerned about their small fan base. You guys, Key and Peele got to work on building their fan base. They're very commercial. I have no idea why their fan base wouldn't be bigger. Like, I understand Louis C.K. being niche, although now he's the star of The Secret Life of Pets, huh? If I were his agent, I'd be like, I want this gig for him. What do I need to say to you? But also, they want someone who's more popular. Get this. Kevin Hart is actually someone's name that's being floated. And they're a little concerned because he's a little unpredictable and they don't want him to go off script. So they're like, what if he co-hosts with Dwayne Johnson? They're pals from Central Intelligence. Great movie, by the way. And they're also, of course, co-starring the upcoming Jumanji, and I'm sure they'd love the opportunity to promote that. Just as when they co-hosted the MTV Movie Awards to promote Central Intelligence. But I have to say, now that I think about it, I didn't think they did a particularly good job hosting the MTV Movie Awards, but I don't know. Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart hosting the Oscars, that's pretty good. Dwayne Johnson apparently also has been interested in this gig, which I think is hilarious. Oh, he would blow it up with his social media. Both of them would. Then apparently also even Eddie Murphy is being considered. He has Mr. Church coming out this year. And, Eddie Murphy, always people talk about him coming back into the fold, right? But it never happened. So I would hold my breath for that. My choice would be Louis C.K., but I would be interested. I actually like all these choices. I think Key and Peele are very funny, although I thought they kind of were one of the hosts of the VMA Awards on Sunday, and I thought that their gags got old. They should have changed up the characters that they were doing. Their Tom Brady joke was pretty funny. So we'll see. Key is my favorite. I think he's fantastic. But Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson, I think that might be the way to go. That might be the way to go. All right, so those are the two Oscar stories of the day. Now, here's a great story. Rogue One is a very clever idea. We'll see how the execution turns out, but I think all of us have been in love with the idea, the outside-of-the-box thinking of making a war-type Star Wars movie to change genres, as Marvel did so successfully with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And now they're thinking outside the box over at Disney and Lucasfilm with how to promote not only the film, but the toys for the movie, with a new series of stop-motion shorts under the hashtag #GoRogue. Now, what they did was they selected some Star Wars superfans, to make stop-motion shorts with the new toys for the movie. That's how they're advertising the toys. And I have to say, the toys look pretty good. There's a link down below to the first short if you'd like to check it out. We'll talk about it in a moment. But the toys are from Hasbro, Lego, Jakks Pacific, Mattel, Funko, and the Disney Store. That's hilarious. The Disney Store is on there. Some of these look pretty nice. I think that while the toys look great and the quality of the stop motion is excellent, I think the script is garbage and it's not funny. So, it just shows, I'm glad that they came up with this, but they weren't able to, knock it out of the park. But that doesn't mean that someone else can't. Fans can submit their own stop motion shorts using the toys for Rogue One starting September 30th, when the toys go on sale. I love the synergy. There's a link down below to the Star Wars website where you can read about the contest rules. And if you're one of the winners, not only, I'm sure, will Lucasfilm share your short with all Star Wars fans, so they not only can laugh at your jokes, but buy the toys you spotlighted, but also you will get flown to a special screening of Rogue One at Lucasfilm in San Francisco, with live people in it. That's pretty cool. I have to say, the K2 toy, the Alan Tudyk robot, I might actually buy that. And I also liked, they had Diego Luna's character, I think Caspian, in the short, and he had like a very strong. I don't think it's the characters. And also the Jin Urso figure, the face looked pretty darn good. But I don't think it's the actual voices of the actual actors. But having such a strong Hispanic or Latino accent with Diego Luna's character was pretty neat. I was like, Star Wars diversity. Very organic and well done. But Stormtroopers, of course, are still the best. So check that out and write down below what you think of this kind of outside of the toy box thinking when it comes to promoting Rogue One, and if maybe you plan to enter. Good luck if you do or break a leg. Now, as for the viewer question, this comes from Pete Jones. We've been talking a lot about the movie business in the last few episodes on Morning Movie News, the workings behind the scenes, and so Pete Jones had a question about that. And Pete said, "Hi, Grace. What is the difference between a production company like Bad Robot and a film studio like Paramount?" Great question. All right, so a production company is run by a producer. It's a shingle. Now, almost all production companies have a first look distribution deal with a studio, and that's a studio. Okay, so in the old days, in the studio system, studios made all their own movies, right? That's not so much the case these days. I think with the big blockbusters they're still made kind of in-house in divisions. Like there's no production company handling the DCEU, right? They're all in-house employees at Warner Brothers. However, for other movies, they get a steady stream of those from production companies that the studio has deals with. So film studios do not make, for the most part, films besides the big blockbusters. And even then, you have to pay attention. Like if it's like Pirates of the Caribbean, Jerry Bruckheimer makes that for Disney, right? And he's a producer with a production company. So after the studio system was dismantled for reasons of powers of abuse, etc., and everybody wanting to be a free agent, production companies really came about. And what a production company is it's run by a producer or a director, like Steven Spielberg has had his own production company. Bad Robot is J.J. Abrams' production company. And those production companies, they're the ones who actually make a lot of movies. And they get their funding, their financing for their operating costs in an office, usually from a studio that they have a first look deal with. For instance, Bad Robot is set up at Paramount. So the idea is that any idea for a movie that Bad Robot comes up with, they have to ask Paramount if they want it first. That's the deal in exchange for usually space on the lot and for Paramount paying, that's for their office expenses and usually an operating budget for a couple of employees, right? I'm sure that Bad Robot has to subsidize that budget with their own money, but Paramount kicks in some money as well. Then Paramount decides if they want to release it. If they do, fantastic. Bad Robot makes that movie to be distributed by Paramount because Bad Robot can't distribute its own movies. But if Paramount says, you know what, we don't want to distribute that, Bad Robot says, it's all good, and then shops it around to other studios to get a potential distribution deal. So that's what the difference is between the two. And also a lot of times production companies will be started by people who used to work at studios, in either the film production department or sometimes running the studio. They'll go, for instance, Scott Rudin used to run Fox's movie division and then started his own production company, which, by the way, also has a deal at Paramount, interestingly enough. But then there's Jerry Bruckheimer, who had a deal with Disney for a long time, etc., etc. So that's the way it works these days. It used to be that you had a deal directly with the studio as a director or a writer. If you look at old movies, you would sit on the lot and, they'd have the writers area and they'd have like where the directors had their offices. But everybody worked directly for the studio. Now there's a middleman, which is the production company, which sits on the lot and again has that first look deal. So that's the difference, Pete. I hope that clarifies that for you. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Please be sure to write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.